And we are live. I think we're live. The red button in the corner is going. And welcome, come one, come all. It is morning, evening, wherever you are. Welcome to the 133rd episode of ADSN. Whoa, I'm hearing myself. There we go. Where am I hearing myself from? That is because usually Sunwalker does the introduction and that gives me time to mute everything. But here I am doing the introduction because that's the way it goes. My name is Curtis and welcome to the 133rd episode of ADSN. We have a hell of a show. We've got a very jam-packed episode this week, full of gear. We're very much exploring our gear acquisition syndrome this week. We've got a brand new piece of gear from Ableton, which is a big one. I mean, we've already got Mike Smith in the chat, and we'll talk about that in a second. And we've got Behringer as well. This was a toss-up because it's also gear from Rolly, but we'll probably talk about that next week. And it was a toss-up in the chat whether it was going to be Rolly or it's going to be Behringer. And we went with Behringer this week, but we'll talk about more. But anyway, we hope you're well. We've got a couple of people there. We'll get to the chat, but just for now, Sunwalker is away this week, and that's okay. It is sad, and I miss my brother, as I'm sure Eon Lake does. But Eon Lake is with me this evening. How are you doing, sir?
I'm horrible, thank you.
Horrible,
full of seasonal germs.
Seasonal germs. That is an album. Awful. That's an album name right there.
Yeah. But nevertheless, I'm happy to be here and talk things beginning with S with you.
That's what we need. That's exactly what we need. I am just writing down seasonal germs because if that's not a song or an album cover, I don't know. But hey, maybe for the next Audionautic challenge, as we'll be talking about later, maybe we'll see how that goes. Aside from accumulating seasonal germs, what's been going on, bro?
I've been quietly beavering away on tracks on my own, you know. Been to see some live music again as well, actually, because the Castles in Space Levitation event was last weekend. That was a lot of fun. It's all very inspiring, lots of very different music. You know, the score either makes you want to throw all your stuff in the bin or make some music, or both.
Well, why not both?
Why not be conflicted and contradictory? It's very English. But yeah, that's been inspiring. So I've just been doing stuff, little bits and pieces, and all the secret projects that I won't tell anyone about.
Do I tell them about the MP3 that you sent me the other day?
Oh, you can do. Yeah, that was just something I knocked out on while I was bored for a couple of hours waiting for a family member.
If that is what you make when you're bored and when you've got nothing better to do, like, fuck me. I mean, there we go. There is the loss of monetization this week. There we go. 3 minutes in, no Sunwalker, and already all bets are off. So here we go.
And it wasn't me for once. I'm usually Mr. Potty Mouth.
You are, and that's okay. Okay, lots to unpack there. Levitation. Tell us about that. Who did you see, and what was good about it, and what do you like?
It was a bit of a mixture of Castles in Space regulars, like the big people like Warrington, Runcorn, Newtown Development Plan. Some of the newer people like James Adrian Brown, A-Bear, a load of the regulars, the Misties, Twilight Sequence, but there was also a couple of slightly more well-known names like System 7 and James Holden, who were both very interesting as well. There were some people really bringing their A game from an ambient point of view, from a beats point of view, from a trancey point of view, from a modern electronica point of view. There was all sorts of interesting stuff going on. Lots to see and love, and a bar in every floor. So.
That's a great way of doing it. Like, seeing the community, man. Like, I mean, it'd be a great place to get to with Audionautic, where we can create these live events. But like, I imagine the physical manifestation of an online community must be quite homecoming in a way.
It's lovely, yeah. What is a little bit weird is learning who is who. It takes a few events for that to happen, unless you wear a name tag or something. You know, you tell people what your name is, not what you produce music as. But yeah, once you've got through all of that, it's a lot of fun seeing familiar faces and catching up and so on.
Definitely. I think it's a very fair point. It's about finding the people and the humans and the heart behind the screens in which we kind of exist for the majority. I think that's lovely.
Yeah. We all look forward to it, getting together in the real world and drinking some beer and doing what we do on here to a certain extent, talking about synths and MIDI problems and stuff like that.
It always comes down to MIDI problems, doesn't it? Yeah, I mean, to be fair, if you're meeting friends talking about nerdy stuff and drinking beer, I think there's a home for that in the Czech Republic. So I think we're okay. I think we're okay. So yeah, thank you for that. And excellent. So let's have a look. Mo MIDI problems, Mo problems. I'm just going to put that in because Mike Smith is in the chat. We are joined by many of our lovely people community. Speaking of community, we are very much here. Mike Smith, Mo MIDI, Mo problems. We also have Bendu here in the chat as well. Beavering, who loves the idea of beavering. I love the idea of beavering. I think it's a great way of doing it. Just kind of plodding along, being a bit bumbly. That's what beavers do. And gnawing on wood. That's great, you know. And we also have Smiling Aries here in the chat.
Hello.
Wonderful. I think first person here as well. Lovely to see you, Smiling Aries. And also we have Pat Brady in the chat as well. I think that's everyone. Hello, everyone, for now. Lovely to have you here. It is just the two of us this week. Some Warfare has been taken. Let's just say he was taken by a dragon. Let's go with that one. He can't join us.
I was going to say aliens.
Ooh, yeah, okay. Aliens, dragons, however you want to spin it. He's not here this week, and that's a sad occasion, but it's going to be fine. We're going to keep it going. I'm going to try. Someone was very good at keeping us on track and on point. I'm an ADHD riddled child, and therefore we get distracted quite easily and get quite honestly, and that's fine. Someone was good at keeping us on track, but we have two Ableton lovers this week. And let's get straight into it. Let's face it. Big news for this week is that Ableton has dropped the Move. And that has been widely anticipated with many people, even Mike Smith, but he says, get on with it. All right. Okay, we hear you. We'll get on with it. It's fine. I'm going to share my screen here. It'll be a bit clunky. It's just me doing everything this week. But
so this wasn't quite the massive surprise it was supposed to be, was it? But here it is.
Okay. What do you mean by that? What do you mean? Let's go straight into it.
Well, it was a little bit leaked, wasn't it? This.
Yeah, it got leaked on Reddit, and everyone was like, "Nah, that can't be it." No, and then it was that.
But here it is. Somebody has taken a circular 4 to a push and made it smaller.
Exactly. Before we get into the specs of it, what are your first impressions, Ian? Like,
it's like somebody's taken a circular saw. No, I don't know. That's my honest first impression. To think, what do I think? Do I like it? Do I think it's expensive? Do I wonder if it has much of a point? That's the sort of stuff churning around in my head. I mean, I don't dislike it. I like the way they build their pushes and moves, and the Akai partnership and the hardware build quality. I like. The use case for this, I really don't know. And I haven't seen a picture that really shows the actual size of it very well. Looking at it, you expect it's actually push width and, much shorter, but I don't think it is. I think it's smaller than that and a bit more portable.
You're right there. I think it's if you had I'm looking at my Push 2 now, and I was thinking if you the way I see it and what I've seen in the videos and stuff like that is if you were to truncate the wide black areas of it itself and then move it around, I think it's just that. That's what I think.
So what? So it's about the width of the button section on the Push 2.
I think. Well, yeah. So they've got the button section, and then they've got like a little bit at the side, right? So I think it's basically the squares themselves are a little bit shorter as well. I feel so. It's not that wide. I think it's a bit shorter than that. He kind of goes, there you go. Mike Smith says he's better than anyone. He's actually seen one and played one in real life, I believe. Same size as an MPK mini keys.
He wouldn't tell us about it because he was not allowed.
Well, I mean,
If
an
only, if
NDA
only
is
everyone was as tight-lipped as he was.
exactly. But yeah, if you're under an NDA, that is totally fair enough, and that's totally fair.
And well
But
done.
yeah,
To do it.
yeah, nice one for doing it well.
Yeah, I mean,
nice.
should we talk about the specs of this and see if either of us are compelled to buy one at the end of the list? What do you think?
Let's try that. So I've got them here. So if we come here, so there's there's a standalone instrument. The idea is for portability and capture on the go. 1,500 plus sounds, apparently. 32 polyphonic aftertouch pads, 16 steps sequencer, built-in speaker and microphone. Seamless integration with Ableton Live through Ableton Cloud and Wi-Fi. Drum mode, melodic mode, and sampler use. So basically a 4-track creation software in there as well. 64 gigabytes of storage, OLED display, Wi-Fi, and a battery of up to 4 hours of charge. Yeah. And lots of encoders and lots of jog wheels on that as well. Yeah. How do you feel about that?
That's how I feel. I feel a bit.
Yeah. Just a bit like, you know what I mean?
4 tracks. 4.
Well,
I've
how
got
many
more fingers than that.
the Ableton Note on the
More than 4.
It had more than 4. Is that right?
As far as I know, yeah, you can add a few more. How many have I got? I'm going to have a little look now while we talk, but it's more than 4.
More than 4. I get that.
Yeah.
To answer, hello, Synth Samurai. Nice to meet you. Nice to see you. And MIDI out. Yes, it's MIDI out through micro. What's it called? USB-C, essentially, as opposed to like 5-pin MIDI, which just seems to be where everything is going right now. And that I find that quite problematic. But we'll get to that. Cresshead says 8 patterns per song per track is rubbish. That is a very, very I
can't really disagree with that, to be fair.
I got that. In the name of latency, we'll go back to that in a second. Mike Smith says Curtis had a use case for it though. Would you mind clarifying what you mean by that, Mike? I don't quite understand what you're saying. But coming back to Cresshead, per track is rubbish. Yeah, Eon Lake, what are your thoughts?
So, you mentioned Note, and I think that's one compelling argument against this already. That I quite like Ableton Note. We talked about it back in the day. I've used it a little bit, and to be honest, it feels a little bit more flexible than this does. I mean, I like the hardware. I like the touchy. I like the fact it is small enough you can chuck it in a bag and take it with you. However, I find it a little bit surprisingly limited, really, with the 4 tracks. For me, I mean, yeah, you can work around it in the digital world. You can bounce and all the rest of it, but I don't know. There are other things that fit in a backpack that don't feel as limiting. It just, for me, it feels oddly spec'd. I like the idea. I like the sort of use case they're going for. I really like the cloud side of it that makes it very easy to sort of integrate. You just turn it on both ends and it syncs however many projects. I don't know. The Note app only does 3, but I expect this probably does more. But even so, I mean, how far are you going to go with 4 tracks? I don't know.
With
this pads, 8 would be so much more convenient.
Right, exactly. And this is my thought as well. Like inbuilt, you've got a drum track mode, you've got a melodic mode, you've got a sequencer mode, and you've got a bass mode, essentially. And that's fine and that's great. And yes, and to clarify what Mike Smith said, I, as in Curtis, talked about wanting a small groove box style thing to pop in the backpack. And yes, you're completely right, mate. And it is maybe I'm just being a millennial about it, but I've been gifted that in this Notion by Ableton, and I kind of go, yeah, in that regard. So I'm not so sure. I'm not so taken on it for that reason. Also, just before I get into it, hey Abby, nice to see her. One of our patrons. Absolutely lovely to see her. New album out, I believe, out on our not out on our Discord, but the link is in our Discord if you want to go check it out. I am yet to check it out, but go see it. And then have you listened to it?
Not yet. No. I will though. You can bet your anything that's important to you on that.
You can bet your bottom chicken on that. But 4 tracks. I'm similar to you, Eon Lake. I'm just not convinced by 4 tracks. I'm not sure as a sketch station, that's fine. And as this notion of like getting something down quick on the go, putting your backpack, groove box to play along, that kind of thing. Sure. I want more than 4, and I'm quite happy. It's 400. It's 400 euro. I'm quite happy to pay that 500 and get 8. You know what I mean?
I just think it's a little highly priced as well. So what else do we get in that price range? I'm thinking about this because I think the use case is a good one. People want little groove boxes they could take with them. It's not that tiny, but it's absolutely portable, and it's got reasonable battery life as well. What do they think, about 8 hours or something? I thought, seem to remember. And it's all very functional, but yes, we're all getting comments in the chat about polyphony loss and stuff like that. I think it just feels a lot like a compromise, and I hate to do it, but I've got one of these, and this takes batteries, and it fits in a bag, and I honestly don't think that I've got the same limitations. I mean, if you've taken the time to actually record some synth pads and whatnot and things that you can use, then I'm not as limited by number of concurrent sounds, being able to pattern chain and write songs. I just feel like when you're looking to fill that gap of a groove box that you take with you, I find sample based seems to work best. I had assumed that this was just going to be MIDI, but obviously it's a little bit of everything, but not much of everything. As Mike Smith says in the chat, Circuit Tracks is a competitor, and I don't know. It's not new, Circuit Tracks, but it's a very real competitor to this. So, I mean, it feels like they've given up a little bit of advantage there in the way that they've specified this against things that already exist, and it's not cheap either. Now, I don't mind it not being cheap because the build quality is usually really good, and the functionality and integration are probably second to none. But I can't get past the 4 tracks thing at the moment mentally.
I know what you mean. I know exactly what you mean. In that name, just to kind of roll back a few, there's a lot of chat. Firstly, hey to Shady, nice to see you, brother. Hope you're doing well.
Yeah, very nice.
Hope you. Listen to the new KST. It's always nice. I listened to the new KST album the other day, just on my iPod again, and it's beautiful and always beautiful. Anyway, just to come back to what you were saying without getting distracted too quickly and too confrontationally, the Circuit Tracks is currently listed on Toman for $269, which, yes, as a competitor to that is pretty significant. And the Ableton Move is going for $449 right now, which is almost double the price in that regard. And it does seem like a consistent limitation in that regard, in that own right. At the same time, Synth Samurai comes up with a decent idea. I feel like the Ableton Move is a gateway to get their DAW only users into hardware before they release a big standalone hardware with many tracks. I hear that, and that's a good point. It's a nice idea. It's almost like a kind of like an upsell towards like the Push 3 in that regard. You bought this, you might like this in that regard. But that even still, that's still a huge price point in that regard, no?
Yeah, and to be honest, a push and a push two, they're not cheap, right? Ableton's not cheap. I don't know if that would actually work as some sort of gateway drug unless you literally sold it to buy something bigger. You wouldn't want to hang on to it and buy a push on top of that, or a standalone push 3 or whatever's coming next. It's I don't know. I mean, everything to this point has been so spot on for my money. I'm a push 1 owner and a push 2 owner. I'm not getting a 3 anytime new, but both of those were really well pitched. They were a bit pricey, but they're rock solid and will tour easily. They allow you to perform. They give you access to everything. It's easy to see what you're doing in low light. They really work well live. And I suppose this would do a similar thing, but I don't know. I feel like it's a bit of a missed opportunity, really. I think with a little bit more functionality and so on, it could be pretty compelling. But yeah.
I hear what you're saying. I hear we have a lot of chat. I'm just going to go. From the top. So bear with us. Bendu says Teenage Engineer OP1, like a rival, I suppose. We're talking about kind of like rivals in that regard. The OP1, I did see this notion of it being an OPZ killer. Now, I'm not very familiar. I know you've got both of them.
Yeah.
Where do you sit about that? That's a good point from Bendu.
Well, they're both. I don't know how many tracks have you got on an OPZ? There are quite a few because it does all the drums independently. You've got about 5 tracks of percussion, then sample, then bass, then ARP, then chords. I don't know, but OP1 obviously is 4 track, and you have to record everything. So there is a kind of a paradigm there, but I mean, those were horribly overpriced. They make this seem, very, very cheap, whereas an OPZ is extremely cheap now, secondhand, and really quite usable. I was using mine only at the weekend while I was out and about to do some beat making. There's some interesting comments in the chat about how you might, get around the limitation of 4 tracks and so on. 4 drums.
Why don't we do that? Let's go for that for now. Let's keep on that track for now. I want to circle back to the ideas and the functions and then the personality behind it. So there's a lot of chat. We'll get to it. There we go. So who sparked that off? Who are you looking at, Ian Luke?
Firstly, Chris had talking about no time stretching. That seems odd. Presumably you can pitch things to get them in time. And Wes was talking about multiple pads, where was it? Effects chains and so on. I suppose you can sample some of these things. I don't know how far you get with a sample track. If you can sort of create something, multi-timbral, sample it. How many of those things can you play on top of each other, along with replacing what you used originally to create the sample? Maybe if there's flexibility there, that addresses some of the downsides of this, or perceived downsides at this time. It's still very early days, isn't it? It may be one of those bits of kit that you can work around things a little bit, and people become quite fond of it for that reason. I mean, on paper, this is the sort of thing that we would usually like, isn't it? Something small, portable, relatively inexpensive that lets you get relatively fully formed ideas down, so that, and you pick them up in a full studio very quickly and easily. So if there are ways around the limitations and mitigating things you can do, that would massively change my opinion.
I hear that. I know what you mean.
And I'm wondering, like the chat, can you just sample stuff and just, create interesting soundscapes, sample those, and then add the more fundamental stuff with your remaining tracks. I don't know.
Well, I mean, as Chris says, resampling is good looking at the possibilities of it. And samples are mono, no chords. And drum sample pitching appears to be 16 pitches. I think you lose the scales, etc., as it's monophonic playback, etc. Now, so there is obviously room to play with the 4 tracks, which, I mean, obviously is great. We're always looking for workarounds and ways to go. But at the same time, perhaps maybe we're looking at it from a different angle, right? So we're all like, me and you specifically are like Ableton users in the DAW. And where is the comment? I need to scroll up a little bit. Smiling Errors says that there must be some specific Ableton functions that separate it. Now, what springs to mind when we say that, from my head at least, is something like the Ableton Cloud and the syncing with Ableton Live. So like, Eon, like, you're the kind of person who likes to go and sit in a field somewhere or by the sea, and then make some sketches on holiday and stuff like that, and then bring it back to the studio and play around. Now, that's what this is. I mean, in my head, it's screaming 4 tracks is severely limited to even the sketch isn't much. But, you could make a lot of sketches out and about and then kind of move it on through. Like, are we thinking it, and are we tethered to this notion of Ableton as a DAW when what they're actually doing is moving out further beyond that into that notion, and we're just looking at it from the lens of, oh, well, I've got a DAW to do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, certainly, possibly. Yeah. I don't know. I just I'm feeling very negative today, saying all these things. But, I'm just looking at, every time I see a stat, like it says 16 bar step sequencer. Sorry, I thought it was saying 16 step. 16 bars is a lot. I like that. That's quite a big deal, because these days, even 32 steps isn't great.
Wait, where are you reading that? Because I'm reading 16 step sequencer. So where are you reading?
It is steps. Then that's why not 32? Why not 64? Case in point, black box. The black box. Okay, it's sample based again, but you can have synth batches and stuff, set up on it. It does up to 128 steps, I think, from memory, and you've got 16 pads that you can have, stereo sound on that lasts God knows how long, because it was streaming from disk. I mean, it's more money, but not a huge amount more. And potentially you can do a lot more on it.
So
I don't know.
We're going for length and breadth of structure as opposed to necessarily depth and instrumentation in that regard.
Yeah.
Which is
no, 256 steps. People, we need to see the stats. Where are they? Come on, bring them up.
While you're doing that, you find that, and we'll come back to it. We'll circle back around to that while you're doing that. Just while you're doing that, Sleeping State says, are they trying to get new users into Ableton or give existing users a niche product? Which one defines how it should be measured? Which is a very good point in that regard.
Yeah, absolutely.
Completely. There is this notion, and Mike's got another educational thing, which we'll come back to in a second. But yes, like as we see electronic music move from the DAW and the producers and the beat makers to the live production world, maybe this is the market in which they're trying to attract. The groove boxes where you come to a gig, you plug in, you've got, say, an SP404, you've got the Move, you've got a synthesizer, and you've got a few loops babbled up, like, pre-programmed drum loops and stuff like that. Maybe that's where they're trying to get into. Like, again, Mike Smith says, like, along the same lines as the circuit tracks or the digitact or something like that, where there is internal processing which then you can expand on with other gear. Thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that they push is the fact that you don't need Ableton It's a standalone box in its own right, such as it is. So to me, it feels like it's a bit like a beat, a small beat making platform, a bit like an MPC one.
Yeah, you can go out, you can make your sketches, and then you can go into nature or whatever it is like you like to do, and make your sketches, and then come back and kind of expand on them. And then with the additions of things like Ableton Cloud, you can seamlessly just transfer. It does lock you in somewhat to doing like Ableton stock plugins, which is another kind of thing. And given your opinion of Ableton stock plugins or Ableton stock synthesizers, that could be another debate. But yeah, so I mean, that it maybe we're again. So maybe it's not meant to be this kind of like Ableton in a hardware piece of situation, but they're trying to kind of have their cake and eat it too, or have their butt on both chairs, as the Czechs like to say.
That's a good one.
It's a good one. Where is it? It's a good point in this. I'm trying to find it. Mike said it as well. Aside from the price, let me bring it up. Where are we? Oh, we go. Ignoring the cost for a minute. Okay, just for a minute. He says, can you, Curtis, see this as something to get kids to learn beat making? And this is a fundamentally fantastic point, because the short answer is yes.
Yeah,
completely. Having just done a whole kind of like Ableton sponsorship with the day job and the school that I work at, where you've had to buy 6 push 2s. I think we bought 5 push 2s at a discount, but still quite a hefty amount, like over $1,000 a piece, and then get the licenses for that. To bring that all in, that's a hefty budget for schools, especially when along the whole thing, the arts is being slashed year upon year in favor of like sciences and maths and stuff. To bring $450 boxes to the kids and go, hey, here's 4 tracks, the basis of a song, drums, bass, melody, and chords, for example, to bring them and say, this is your fundamental, make something happen. That is something which is quite exciting in that regard.
Yep, and it is standalone as well. So in theory, it's simple enough for people to pick up. It's a trimmed down version of something that doesn't change as you scale it out and look at the bigger solutions like push and the door and everything else. So it's a good way in. It's small, portable. That's the sort of thing, especially if you are trying to teach things to kids and they've got things they want to be able to take them around to other people's houses and stuff like that. The portability is a big deal. And if you think about what it is, I mean, it's a sequencer. It's like a software instrument. It's also a sampler. You can sample into it either with a line in or a microphone. And it is a control surface for live that will be automatically detected and will just work pretty much out of the box as you'd expect with a push. So it covers a fair bit of ground. Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's hugely overpriced. The price was pretty much what I expected it to be. It's just looking through some of the specs, I think, could that be a bit limiting? Again, we sometimes like to look at limitations as being helpful in the way that it tends to make people more creative. So it's not always a bad thing, and maybe there's just enough flexibility in it that you're not trying to do everything on a small portable piece of kit, and there is still something to be gained from using your DAW when you get home.
Yeah, I hear that. I mean, as Wes says, I think people are really hyper focused on the 4 tracks. And just a basis of what we're saying here, Mike Smith says, and if that works for the kids, shouldn't we synth nerds be a little bit more childlike and playful? Sure, yeah. I mean, for both of them, maybe we are too kind of hyper focused on the limitations which it brings. Maybe we do. Again, we look and we expect more from our hardware boxes. And yeah, maybe that's what it is. Maybe the expectation is the death of reality in that regard. And maybe we're just all sitting here with X amount and unlimited tracks and unlimited effects and sends and returns and going, you know what? No. But maybe that's not what we need to do. Maybe as producers, maybe as musicians, we need to come back down to the notion of, hey, you've got your bass, you've got your rhythm, you've got your chords, and you've got your lead. And this is the very fundamental of what we make. Yeah, it makes sense. I don't know. I'm still not buying one yet. I don't know. I'm still not. I can't throw €450 at it just yet. You know what I mean?
No, I think we were looking at the Roland Synth the other week, which works great as a portable groove box. Downside there, I mean, that's got masses of features and you can get a lot done. The downside there is the amount of recording time you've got. Whereas with this, what was it saying? 4 hours of music or something there's room for? I believe that's what, I don't know how they specify these things.
The battery life is what they're saying.
Per charge.
Sorry, 4 hours of music making per charge, essentially. 4 hours of music making per charge. But it's got 64 gigabytes of internal memory.
Yeah, I mean, this obviously you could do more music on, basically. It's a trade-off, isn't it? But it is more expensive. I don't know. If I'm going to be carrying something everywhere, I want it to be pretty rugged, though, and their build quality is usually pretty good.
Yeah, you can't deny that. I think it's a good starting point, and I do think that there is space for them, especially again. I'm always coming from an educational perspective in the sense that I think it's great to get us away, or get specifically Gen Z, Gen Alpha away from the screens, away from the unlimited beat making potentials of the DAW. I think that's great. And I think that's awesome in its own right. Maybe. And again, personally, I can't see it having a space in my arsenal just yet. I have built an addendum, and we have now got what was a 16-track template for Ableton is now a 24, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that.
Okay. But I don't think we're target audience for this, and I do think, like Mike says, there's some benefit for younger people and people beginning to try and make music with equipment, especially out and about. Less of a use case for us, perhaps, but still maybe in places. I'll be very interested to see what people can do with this.
I'd like to see what. There are a few videos on YouTube popping up which are very polished and very kind of like, producty, which as you'd expect from the launch. So if anyone gets their hands on it, I don't know, Mike, if you've got one at all. I don't know. But if anyone has got one, or is anyone watching back does have this, or listening on Spotify or Apple Music, head over to our Discord. We'd love to see people making stuff with it. Because maybe it is just a case of seeing what it can do. You know what I mean? Like monkey see, monkey do.
I mean, Mike points out it's got link, of course. So, if all your mates have got them, you can all link up and have a jam. And maybe some of these restrictions, if they are a pain, go out the window. Could be fun.
I think
it's certainly a lot cheaper than Push, isn't it? Because with Push, you need a copy. Well, not with Push 3, maybe, but you need a copy of Ableton as well, or at least you used to. So,
I imagine it comes with a Lite at least. No, if a Novation Launchpad Mini comes with a version of Lite, I'm sure it would come with a Lite at least. Well, head across the Discord. I'll put the link in the chat. If anyone's making anything, I'd like to see it. We're a sleeping state. Coming back from what we were saying earlier, I don't understand the idea for kids. They do it a lot quicker with a MIDI keyboard that will cost almost nothing. You're right. He's not wrong. He's completely right. It is at the same time that would be the kids in another environment where they're stuck on their screen. which the zeitgeisty thing right now is to get kids away from the screens, and listening, ear training, as opposed to doing it by sight. Ear training is massive in engineering, especially in music production as well. And for the one of a better, for one of the downsides, in my personal opinion, of DAWs is that a lot of things are visual, right? A lot of things are visual as opposed to hearing them. Maybe that's just me, I don't know, but I'm trying to get the kids to listen as opposed to see something.
Yeah, it's definitely a risk when there are all those nice pretty curves watching you distort them and bars go up and down and so on. You've got displays to show you what something sounds like.
Exactly. Crest has an interesting point. It's an option for poorer people to have Ableton Mini Push.
Possibly.
And I mean, that is what we're missing, right? In a sense, like I saw it just before the move came out, and this is what I was hoping for. It's like, so I've got the Launchpad Pro, which is here. It's a nice, decent kind of controller. I've got the APC Mini over there. There's a launch control over there as well. I've got a lot of MIDI controllers, but then you are running from, say, €200 right up now to 400, before the time there was the Ableton Push, which was going for about $1,000. There has been very little in that median ground.
Yeah, that's true.
But I'm not sure it fits it. I'm not sure it kind of goes with it,
Well, the market will decide, won't they? We'll see.
The market will decide. Mike has just put something in here into the Discord while we're talking. Just popped up on my notifications. So maybe there's something to see. Maybe that's what the fun of it will be, seeing people make stuff and kind of come through.
Yeah, I mean, I find it hard to think they missed the mark that much, to be fair. They've always been pretty good with what they've designed so far. Maybe I should be a bit more trusting.
Maybe. And yeah, maybe. And we'll have to see as time goes on. So I have to see. But yes, the chat has been alive for this first segment of the show. And with many of you here, thank you ever so much for being here tonight, or today, or yesterday. Depends where you are in the world. It could be tomorrow if you're in Australia, to be fair. But yeah, thank you to everyone who tunes in every week. We really appreciate it. We don't have sponsorships. We don't have adverts or anything like that. So it is your support, which comes in each week, that allows us to keep going. So we really appreciate it. This show does come to you from our patrons. There's Shady in here as well. There's Mike Smith in here. There's Bendu in the chat. There's Abby in the chat, all of whom week in, week out show up and give their financial credit to us, and I really appreciate it. So we really appreciate it. So thank you ever so much. If you like what you've come in, there's a couple of newcomers this week. If you like what you see and you want to see more, head across to our Patreon, patreon.com/Audionautic. Pledges start at $2, and it allows us to keep going each week. We do more. We are growing. Things are getting better. More plugin reviews, more demo hardware reviews. We did a review of the P6 from Roland a couple of weeks ago from Sunwarper, and that is down to you guys. So thank you ever so much for your time, effort. We are going to NAMM as well, which is going to be great fun. So yeah, if you want to become a patron, we got there's a specialized live stream which we do each month, just specifically for you guys, Starstream, where we sit and we hang out for an hour or so on the last Sunday of every month. That is a proper nerd fest in the best of ways. So we're sharing, so where the community really comes together and makes it work. As well as early access to everything we release on Audionautic Records, and the ability to hop into the chat, which is really good fun. So yeah, thank you. Is there any addition to that, Eon Lake?
Just that patrons above a certain level are able to come on here and give us the benefit of their views in person. Yeah. And I get to delve into their heads and ask them questions as well, which is a benefit to me. But yeah, we do occasionally have patrons join us. It's open to all patrons above a certain level, and it's always nice to get some people on to extend the chat. But we, of course, appreciate any kind of attention that you give us. Just hanging out with us is enough.
It is good. While we're on the subject of community, we've had a couple of people email us and message us in Discord over the last couple of weeks about what's happening with our physicals. And yeah, we have stopped physicals for a while because of the whole drama with Kunaki, our print on demand manufacturer. Right now, we're not doing CDs. A couple of people, I've had 2 people come to me this week asking to buy Eon Lake's CD, and I'm sorry to say that we can't do it just now. We are waiting to do it. If you want to get involved with that, that is another thing that we're doing. We're doing Project Homebrew, where we're trying to get to the stage where we are printing our own CDs and printing from home. Where the idea is I've got a space on my desk over there. We want to get a printer, get a load of stuff and start doing our own CDs, a bit like Lars is doing with cassettes, Error Prone Records, which he's just started doing. I don't know if you've seen that. You know, like that looks pretty fun.
I haven't checked it out yet, actually. No.
That man is on a mission. He's on a he's on a mission. So yeah, it's another thing. If you want, we're trying to we can't at this stage. We can't make physicals work externally. We can't do it. It's still too small for that kind of thing. We want to bring it in house. Patreon's another way of doing that, or a one-time donation through PayPal. Very much so. Any more, Eon Lake, or should we continue on our quest for gear acquisition syndrome?
Well, we've got some more gear to talk about, haven't we? And happily, this time it's something that's absolutely not, you know, questionable in any way or contentious in any way. I think is the word I was looking for.
Oh, yeah, of course. I mean, this next manufacturer has done everything they can to ensure credibility and understanding and fairness within the community.
Yes, it's the never controversial.
What are we talking about?
We're talking about this new Behringer bit of kit, aren't we? The I've forgotten what they called it now because I've used one word for all of them.
They've got this one is called the Behringer Grind, and grind is not just spelled GRIND. It is spelled GRIND, all in caps, basically.
Yeah, I thought I just remembered that, but it really is called the Grind.
Just in case you hadn't seen it before, this is what it is. I'm gonna try and get a better photo. That one's pixelated, but let's try this one. This could work actually. Let's try this one. Share the screen instead. But yes, the Behringer Grind, the latest, along with their Crave and what's the other one that they're doing? Where are we? Where are my notes? Yeah, Crave and Edge. Essentially, they're semi-modular pieces. I'll go into the specs in a moment, but this has got a lot of potential, so to speak. And in the group that me, Sun Warper, and Eon Lake had, there was some debate whether to talk about this or the Rolly. You kind of like this, Eon Lake. Do you want to tell us why?
Well, part of me really likes it. Part of me is still being a little bit hesitant, but no, what is it? It's not a replica of anybody else's design from the 70s or the 80s or anything else like that. Right. It's not anything that's going to be contentious in that regard. It is a device of their own design up to a point. So they've taken a Eurorack module called the Brain, I think, or Brains. It was essentially their build of mutable instruments, Platts macro oscillator, and includes a load of the engine types that were on that, with some additions of their own as well. And they're not the first person to do that. And this, they've taken that and used that as the sound engine for this. So it's a digital oscillator, but analog filter on this. And what does it have in its favor? Well, I mean, the fact that it's got that, from my point of view, Mutual Instruments DNA and some of the sound sources from there, and some interesting ads, like the Rain engine. I'm not sure exactly what that sounds like, but I'm interested. Plus all the favorites from Platts. Yeah, it's got the of all of the synths that they make that their own design, and that small sort of Crave form factor with semi-modular patch points, it's probably, I think, the most flexible by some way as far as the types of sound it can generate. And again, it's not overpriced as you would imagine. I can't speak to the build quality or longevity of these devices, but I think some of the facts that it's cheaper, they're not necessarily using the most expensive parts, and they can accomplish economies of scale more than it being literally something just thrown together. But again, all of their products are still quite young, so we don't really know how well they will fare over the years. But reasonably priced, very varied in the sounds it can produce. Got the kind of functionality that you would expect. I think it was 32 steps sequencer. The usual patch points that you would want that can match up to other devices and so on. It looks kind of interesting, really. For my money, the more interesting of their stuff. I'm less interested in reissue type projects that they come out with, with a couple of exceptions, but generally I'm a little bit more interested in stuff that they've done themselves.
I get that.
But this is supposed to be one of the best of both worlds. Digital gives you lots of different waveforms and generation synthesis methods, and analog gives you the quality of filter without the sort of graininess and any stepping or anything like that.
Yeah, totally. I mean, let's run through the features while we're here. I'll put it back up on the screen while I do that, and then we can kind of delve into it a little bit more, because there is a lot to talk about here. Let me just put that here, and then I'll just share my screen. So, where are we? Where is my notes? Not that one. Here we go. So, 24 digital oscillators, including 15 mutable instruments plate engines, sorry. You've got 10 synth engines. You've got 10 percussion and noise engines. 4 extended engines, such as the DX7, TD3, the wave generator, and Vox. You've got an oscilloscope in there. You've got a classic 24 dB ladder filter. You've got high, low pass filters. So yeah, 32 step sequencer with 64 onboard storage spots. You've got an arpeggiator. You've got triangle and square LFO, 16 voice polychain. So you can have basically 16 voice polyphony on there. You've got a semi-modular design, which they all come at the moment, which means you can patch them as you want. You've got a 22 by 12 IO matrix and 50 controls, and also MIDI support, all for $199, $200 essentially. Which that's a lot for $200.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's no keyboard, but I mean, if you have a keyboard already, there's a lot in quite a small box there. And I noticed they have left a couple of engines empty, so for sort of future use. So, in a similar way to the way that Arturia brought out the noise engineering synth engines on the Microfreak, there's space to add new engines as time goes by as well. And we do like a platform or a product that the vendor can add new functionality just with a software update. That's that always goes down well with us here, doesn't it?
It does. It is good. We don't want to be stuck on drivers or anything like that. God forbid. The question is, like, with all this, where does it sit? What is its selling point? Behringer are controversial, and Behringer do have a bit of a reputation. Why is this different?
Well, for my money, I mean, maybe I do have a habit of looking at things from my own point of view a little bit too much. I've got to try and do less of that on this show. But for my mind, I think it was Chris Head said in the chat something along these lines that it's ideal for things like electronic music open mics, where you just want to have a few devices with you, small devices that are flexible. You can do a lot of things, and you don't have to have a lot of gear with you. And I think they are quite, made of metal, quite robust on the outside at least. So, the sort of thing you wouldn't necessarily mind carting around with you a little bit.
Yeah.
So that's that's kind of the use case I'm thinking of. But really, it's an inexpensive real synth. If you're looking for some hardware, it's got options to expand its functionality because it's got patch points on it, and it doesn't cost a lot of money. So there are quite a few options, I think, for somebody who doesn't have any hardware or has hardly any, or just wants to have something small to take and play live.
I think that's very fair. I mean, they're pretty solid. I've got a Crave over there, and they're built of metal, and they are solid. Like, even the on button, you push the on button, there is a definitive like clonk with it. The dials or the knobs are all made of metal. The plastic keyboard in inverted commas that you have on there can be a bit rickety, but I mean, you're not really doing anything with that unless you're like putting in a sequence or anything like that. And so that's less of a thing, but it is solid. It is a solid piece of metal. It's a good chunky piece of it as well. It's weighty. It sits there, and it does have the flexibility of what you want you to do. Do you feel like this separates? Behringer's Behringer from the ripoff of Behringer? Do you feel like this is a different ball game?
I don't know. I'm a little bit, because the thing is that it uses Platts basically as its core, and that is fine. It was completely open sourced physically, and from a software point of view, Emily Gillet did open source the whole lot. So that is okay. I'm not a huge fan of that fact, but I don't really have a problem with it either, because if she didn't, then why should I? And it's not the first time it's happened either. I've got a Microfreak and I really like it, and it does use some of the same engines again, and that's what open source software is all about. It's just I'm such a product of consumerism and intellectual property and all of that business that I still have a bit of trouble with somebody who just says, no, have it all, take it, do what you like with it. But yeah, I mean, I don't think it's particularly controversial, really, in this case.
I hear that. I think the most controversial thing about it is it perpetuating the grind culture, essentially, and only in that by name. It does seem, and I get kind of why they're kind of marketing it in that sense. It's this notion of it will do everything. It will do your drums, it will do your synth, it will do your bass, it will do your noise, it will do everything you need it to in that regard. So I get it. It's grinding away, and that's fair enough. Again, like, it does make these things relatively affordable in the sense that, any Tom, Dick, or Harry trying to get into the modular game, you're sinking €3,000 before you've even started in just getting the right modules to kind of get going. Obviously, if you don't build your own or get secondhand, which is another discussion, but yeah, it's affordable, and it's a good way of learning the basics of how to patch. Like, I've been firing, I've got the Crave, and I've been firing that up, and sticking pins and sticking jack and patch cables into different things and seeing what happens. It is wonderfully experimental in that regard.
Yeah, and I'm a big fan of semi-modular as well as modular, because I've got a no coast, and I like putting it next to something else that is semi-modular and using the fact that it's got a random function generator on it. It's got attenuverters on it. It's got envelopes and loopable envelopes and stuff that you can just patch into another device and just, expand the functionality of that, and without having to go to the hassle of, buying a Eurorack case and power supplies and all the rest of that before you even start. So semi-modular can be fun. A couple of things can, be more than the sum of its parts when you add them together, and know how to integrate, the additional functions you can have and just patch them in. It's really handy. and good fun.
Completely. You finished talking just as I was taking a sip of water. Maybe
That's
that's me
always,
not.
I keep doing that.
Yeah, I mean, I hear what you're saying, and it can be, you know, in a world where we're turning knobs and moving things around on the computer and stuff like that, to be taking jack or patch cables and plugging them in and plugging them out. It's, from my perspective, as someone who's not really well versed on that, you know, learning what you can and getting frustrated at what you can't do with it is very eye-opening. Something you go for someone who's been making music for X amount of years and feels quite comfortable sitting at this desk and, you know, adding stuff together, to come back to a space where it's just not working the way you want it to work and you've got to learn how to make it work. It's very humbling in the best of ways in that regard.
Yeah. Yeah.
We got a couple of, well, stay hydrated, Curtis. Trying. We're getting cold in Czech right now, which means it's more difficult to do. Trying to stay hydrated. And we'll get there. But Smiling Errors as well says, love analog, but can't wait for a digital interface on one that can save everything, even if it's just a robot arm, which I feel kind of goes against the grain of what modular is all about. No, being in the moment, creating something and having it there.
Depends who you listen to, really. Yeah, but I mean, some people say, "Oh, yeah, I love the volatile aspect of it. That you've just got to record and you can hit upon magic, and once it's gone, you'll never hear that again." And so, yeah, I can see that, but sometimes it is a pain that you can't get something back. There are in betweens, and people have built digital modules that store parameters of CVs. So if you know how you patched it, it can restore all of your parameters on devices as long as you know what the patching was. They've never really taken off a lot, though. I mean, obviously, you know, analog synths now are exactly that. It's an analog signal path for the sound, but it's a digital, you know, signal path for the CV or the controls, and that's how it remembers what position they were all in. It shouldn't be that hard, I suppose, but would that destroy the magic? I don't know. That's probably quite a big discussion on its own. And it's time Steve joins us.
It is getting towards that 60-minute mark. We are at 62 minutes, and Steve is hungry, so here we go. I've also been working all day, so he's also a bit lonely, I think. I mean, yeah, completely. And I mean, that is another debate, and it's maybe a debate for another day, but I will just say this, that there is something quite nice about having it being stuck in the moment. If the musical creative expression is an expression of that present moment and how you're feeling and how you're manifesting, modular synth is the physical manifestation of that. Because once it goes, and there is a point of that. I am talking on air right now. Do you mind? Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing a lot of recording of modular and semi-modular stuff recently, and building songs out of the audio recently for that reason. Just make a sound I like and capture it and figure out what to do with it later. And it's a nice way to work.
It is, and I can imagine that's a lot of fun. And you know, dealing with, we talk about limitations, like we say, we talk about limitations with the Move. You know, it creates that limitations. And coming back to the grind in that regard, there seems to be, you have a lot to do and there's a lot to go with, but you can only have one at a time in that sense, which is it's not like you can layer it up. And you know that you are limited in the sense that you are creating whatever you want it to be, and that is a playground. That is childlike, and it is really the, you know, we all buy synthesizers and we all buy new pieces of gear, and you know, I'm hoping to get my hands on the SP at the end of next month, and I know that will be a learning curve, and that'll be a kind of like a study time, you know. But this is another level, because on that name of it, the only limitation is your imagination, if that makes sense. And there's a lot to be played with, and all you have to do is just plug in and play.
Yeah,
completely. Anything else on that you want to like?
No, I think we're good. I mean, it is what it is, right? I mean, it's a relatively simple little box. got lots of different voices, and looks like they plan to expand it a bit in the future as well.
It's very nice. I mean, say what you want about Behringer, you know, they make affordability a good thing, which in this economic climate is always a good thing. You know, I was looking at they got some. I was looking at getting a new interface because, you know, why not? And you for like, what is it, 6K? So about $350, you can get a 20. $350, you can get a 20 input, 18 out, or 18 input, 20 output, and it's like that's a lot for very little. Where if you're looking at 3-4 times the price anywhere else. But anyway, I digress. Whether if you are the bumbling musician who is strapped for cash, it's a good way to go in that regard.
Absolutely, yeah.
Completely. Actually, before we move on to the last piece, smiling areas. Can you imagine guitarists having to set up their pedals in the same way analog needs? They do, no? I feel like they do. Like, I feel like we all have. Maybe it's just me. I feel like so I've got like sheets, like hand drawn kind of circles and dial for different kind of like my delays and my different kind of states and stuff like that. Which in that regard, it's similar, no?
Yeah, I suppose you do have presets and so on that you can record on pedals, though, don't you? And you depends how you go. If you're using all pedals, yeah, I mean, it can get a bit convoluted. Some of them are just analog, right? Some of them have got presets. If you've got a big rack that you play with your guitar, you know, loads of multi effects in it.
It's fair.
And a complicated pedal board to recall everything, then I suppose it is all safe. But yeah, it's usually a mixture of the two, isn't it?
Yeah, I'd say so. And I think Lars kind of sums it up quite nicely, along with Smiling Arrows again as well. So you've got this notion of Behringer is the best for price, worst for Essex, and mid on quality. Whereas Smiling Arrows is low, mid across their range, fair. 1 or 2 exceptions worth the money. Yeah, I mean,
I'd kind of agree.
I would. They're not. They're never going to win. They're never going to win the award for a nice, you know, originality or for the sheer quality of their products. But you can, I mean, it's not like you're turning it on and it's making duck noises all the day, is it? It's definitely a synth sound. It's definitely a synthesizer.
Noises or duck noises.
It's definitely making the sounds that you need it to make if you want to get something. You know.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll go with that. But we'd like to know your thoughts. Again, the Discord link is in the description. We tend to carry on these conversations later on down the line. And so, yeah, head across our Discord where you can also get involved in our challenge, which I am late on giving everyone the sample for. Apologies on air. Mental week. I'm going to try and do it this evening after we get off the air, or tomorrow. TEDx week, innit? But yeah, head across to our Discord, get involved in the challenge. This month we're doing the Frankenstein flip.
I didn't see.
The Frankenstein, which we all knew it would win. You know, it's Halloween, it's the Frankenstein.
A bit of a foregone conclusion, yeah. So what is that exactly then? How have we defined it? We put some restrictions around it.
Well, we haven't officially discussed it, and there was so much to talk about at mine and Sunwalker's weekly meet that we didn't actually get around to it. But I'm going to run with we're going to take it to the Discord officially. So this isn't official at this stage. We'll take it to the Discord after the show. But essentially, I'll give you a sample, which is in a key and it has a BPM, and we all have to make a small piece of music within X amount of bars. At one point we said 12, at another point we said 8. So we'll put that in the Discord. But essentially you make a small amount, and then the day before, the deadline is 1 day earlier, I'll cobble it all together, and it will come in order of people who submitted. And basically we just have one long listen through to the whole thing. It's all in the same key, and in theory it's all in the same speed. And then we just have this one beautiful track that we've all made. We call it the Frankenstein flip. It's based on Bendu's idea of where you all have paper, you draw a head, you fold it down, and then you pass it along. That kind of situation.
Except no one can see the head or whatever anyone else drew.
Exactly. That's the plan. So that's
And it
what we're
opens
going
it
for.
up to a bit of an obvious remix competition afterwards.
Exactly.
Well,
Yeah. So
see
that's
about
going to be fun. I'm just going to search the calendar while we're here. We usually do it on the last week of the month. This month, yes, 30th of this month, and it's an hour before we go live. So by that point, I don't know. It's that weird time where in Europe the clocks have gone back, but the United States haven't. So it's going to be a bit wibbly wobbly. But you know, deadline's 29th, and then we will, once we understand the time a bit better, close to the end of the month, we'll say where we're at. Essentially, that's the concept for this month. So if you want to get involved in the community challenges, that's always fun, right?
Yep, and it's all on the Discord, including the guidance of what you need to do. The sample will be on there, tomorrow sometime?
I'm going to try and do it tonight after we close up shop. And yeah, so I'll put it in tomorrow. We'll go from there. Definitely by the end of tomorrow.
Okay. Fun.
It's going to be fun. So on that note, as we come to a bit of a close, Ian, like, what are you going to be doing for the rest of this week or into next week before we next see you?
Because I'm taking a bit of a pause in the way that I do my music and what I'm going to do next, I'm experimenting next week. So I've got a bunch of stuff, probably half an album's worth of rough material, maybe more actually. It all sounds very me. It's slightly different. There's a theme, but I wanted to mix things up a little bit. So it's all going to be whiteboard orientated stuff. I'm going to think of as many things I can try that I haven't done before that might yield different results. I'm looking for something a lot more considered and a bit more variety than previously. So I'm not rushing to finish and to continue, getting stuff out there. I'm just going to take as long as it takes to do it. And I think a lot of experimentation is going to be the way to do it.
For sure. It's being playful, right? Being playful with your art.
Exactly. Yeah, trying to keep it light and to cover as much ground as possible, because you know what it's like. You get too caught up in something or, start flogging it too hard and it all just doesn't work. So be playful, have lots of silly things to do that might work out nicely. Continue taking bits of the studio out, stick them over there on my play tray and, give each one a good investigation, see what it can do for me.
That sounds like a great way of doing it. It sounds like you got to keep it playful, got to keep it fun, got to stay away from the earning, for want of a better phrase, where you're just like, yeah, that's a rise, yeah, that's a bridge, yeah, that's a thing, that's a drop, that kind of thing.
Yeah, because initially I was trying to develop a style or see what my style might be or how, what's there. I think after you've done a certain amount of stuff, you start to sort of lean on old methods and approaches a little bit too much and maybe repeating yourself when you should probably be trying to branch out a bit more. So that's the idea. What about you? Are you still deep in writing for the next canonical Curtis release?
Canonical, I like that. Actually, no, it's not right now. In a similar vein to you, I've kind of taken a step back. I think I was kind of I've got a spreadsheet and I was living my existence by that spreadsheet, ticking off the boxes and making notes and stuff. And it all became a bit too heavy. So I took a step back. I've got a busy week. I'm running a TEDx event this week.
All right.
It's a lot of work in the real world. And I've got Intervoidal 3 has a deadline to be distributed. So I've been back in Photoshop. I've been doing that. And so really what I've been doing is I've been doing the promo side of stuff. And I've been building an addendum to what I've got here. Like I mentioned before, I've got a whole nother table over here now. So I've connected the sketch station at the far end of the room to here. And now I've got a little table in the middle and it's all interconnected and it's all together. And And now I just need to work out what to do with all the pedals, because now I need pedals in different places. So I'm going to continue on that trip. Keep doing my promo, keep doing my visuals, and get down and dirty into dusting stuff off and making it all talk to each other. You know what I mean?
Keep your brush handy. Yeah.
Exactly. It's good fun. So we'll see. So that's what we're doing. Eon Lake was lovely enough to send an MP3 of something he's been working on. So I can't wait for whatever Eon Lake kind of throws up into the world coming soon enough. It's gonna be fun.
Might be a bit more upbeat.
Well, that's fine. That's what we need. We all what we release is merely a manifestation of where we're at in the present moment, and ain't nothing wrong with that. If it's upbeat, if it's dark, like I don't know, man. Like the shit I'm putting out currently is very, very dark, and that's okay. That's totally fine, because that's where I'm at mentally. So we're okay. So yeah, let us know what you guys are up to. If you want to continue the discussion, we'll be in the Discord once again. Thank you ever so much. It's been lovely to see so many people here coming up. Smiling Errors is getting involved in the community challenge. Death Metal Frankenstein coming up, which I feel is very vogue, very on point. I think very nice to see. Cresshead says fun show. Thank you, Cresshead. Hope you've enjoyed it.
Thanks for your input.
And yeah, thanks, Steve. Thanks for that. So yeah, we'll be back. Oh, we are not here next week. We're not doing a show next week. We're not doing a live show. Both Sunwarper and myself are away for separate events. We just got called up for doing different things, so there's no one to physically engineer it in the week. So we're gonna.
No one to shut me up. If I come on here.
So yeah, they just don't have an infrastructure next week. So that's just we're not at that stage where we can just drop everything for ADSN. So we won't do a live show next week. We may do some sort of clip show or some sort of back show, but we'll TBC, as they say. We'll come back to that. So for sure, we'll be back in 2 weeks, where we'll have another spotlight episode. We have a new release coming up on Audionautic next week, so we'll do the spotlight episode for that next week. It's going to be really fun. I'm really excited for this one. You don't know who it is, do you?
I don't know.
No, you don't. And that's okay, and that's totally fine. I'm not sure I'm going to say just yet. I'm going to build the hype a little bit more, but really excited for this one.
Tell me after.
I'll say one thing. It's a collaborative release. It's a collaborative release. Yeah. So two massive entities of the ambient world have come together to create something beautiful, and which is ambient adjacent. That's all I'll say for now. It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be great. I can't wait, and it rhymes, therefore you know it's true. Yes. Before we go, Pat Brady, impressive door opening skills from the cat. Yes, Steve is going to be better than all of us in the post-apocalyptic world.
Stanley's party trick. He's letting himself out.
He's done.
He can never wait to the end of the show.
No, he's done with our bullshit. He just wants to get out. And so, yeah, on that note, I'll play the outro video. Thank you ever so much for those who have joined us this week. It's been lovely to sit and chat with you and get your ideas. We love this community, and we love the fact that we're all here together. So thank you for spending your time. Time is precious, and so thank you very much for spending it with us. We really appreciate it. Eon Lake, any final words before I hit the outro?
No, you said it. Thanks to everyone who's been with us and everyone who's going to be listening to this later on Apple, Spotify, however you listen. We appreciate you doing it. Thank you.
Very much so. We will see you in 2 weeks. Take care of yourselves. Much love, and enjoy the music. Take it easy.